the moon and the phoenix bird. The air was clear again. Several evenings had passed, and the moon was in the first quarter. Again, he gave me an outline for a sketch. Listen to what he told me. I have followed the polar bird and the swimming whale to the eastern coast of Greenland, gaunt ice-covered rocks and dark clouds hung over a valley where dwarf willows and barberry bushes stood clothed in green. The blooming lychnis exhaled sweet odors. My light was faint, my face pale as the water lily that, torn from its stem, has been drifting for weeks with the tide. The crown-shaped northern light burned fiercely in the sky. Its ring was broad, and from its circumference the rays shot like whirling shafts of fire across the whole sky, flashing and changing radiance from green to red. The inhabitants of that icy region were assembling for dance and festivity, but accustomed to this glorious spectacle, they scarcely deigned to glance at it. Let us leave the souls of the dead to their ball play with the heads of the walruses, they thought in their superstition, and they turned their whole attention to the song and dance. In the midst of the circle, and divested of his furry cloak, stood a Greenlander with a small pipe, and he played and sang a song about catching the seal, and the chorus around chimed in with "Ea, ea!" And in their white furs they danced about in the circle till you might fancy it was a polar bear's ball. And now a court of judgment was open. Those Greenlanders who had quarreled stepped forward, and the offended person chanted forth the faults of his adversary in an extempore song, turning them sharply into ridicule, to the sound of the pipe and the measure of the dance. The defendant replied with satire as keen, while the audience laughed and gave their verdict. The rocks heaved, the glaciers melted, and great masses of ice and snow came crashing down, shivering to fragments as they fell. It was a glorious Greenland summer night. 100 paces away, under the open tent of hides, lay a sick man. Life still flowed through his warm blood, but still he was to die. He himself felt it, and all who stood round him knew it also. Therefore his wife was already sewing round him the shroud of furs, that she might not afterwards be obliged to touch the dead body. And she asked, "Wilt thou be buried on the rock in the firm snow? I will deck the spot with thy kayak and thy arrows, and the angekok shall dance over it. Or wouldst thou rather be buried in the sea?" "In the sea," he whispered, and nodded with a mournful smile. "Yes, it is a pleasant summer tent, the sea," observed the wife. "Thousands of seals sport there. The walrus shall lie at thy feet, and the hunt will be safe and merry." And the yelling children tore the outspread hide from the window hole, that the dead man might be carried to the ocean, the billowy ocean that had given him food in life, and that now, in death, was to afford him a place of rest. For his monument he had the floating, ever-changing icebergs, whereon the seal sleeps, while the storm bird flies round their gleaming summits. "I knew an old maid," said the moon. "Every winter she wore a wrapper of yellow satin, and it always remained new, and was the only fashion she followed. In summer she always wore the same straw hat, and I verily believe the very same gray-blue dress. She never went out, except across the street to an old female friend, and in later years she did not even take this walk, for the old friend was dead. In her solitude my old maid was always busy at the window, which was adorned in summer with pretty flowers, and in winter with cress grown upon felt. During the last months I saw her no more at the window, but she was still alive. I knew that, for I had not yet seen her begin the long journey of which she often spoke with her friend. Yes, yes, she was in the habit of saying, 'When I come to die, I shall take a longer journey than I have made my whole life long. Our family vault is 6 miles from here. I shall be carried there and shall sleep there among my family and relatives.' Last night a van stopped at the house. A coffin was carried out, and then I knew that she was dead. They placed straw around the coffin, and the van drove away. There slept the quiet old lady who had not gone out of her house once for the last year. The van rolled out through the town gate as briskly as if it were going for a pleasant excursion. On the high road the pace was quicker yet. The coachman looked nervously round every now and then. I fancy he half expected to see her sitting on the coffin in her yellow satin wrapper, and because he was startled, he foolishly lashed his horses while he held the reins so tightly that the poor beasts were in a foam. They were young and fiery. A hare jumped across the road and startled them, and they fairly ran away. The old sober maiden, who had for years and years moved quietly round and round in a dull circle, was now in death, rattled over stock and stone on the public highway. The coffin in its covering of straw tumbled out of the van and was left on the high road while horses, coachman, and carriage flew past in wild career. The lark rose up caroling from the field. Twittering her morning lay over the coffin, and presently perched upon it, picking with her beak at the straw covering, as though she would tear it up. The lark rose up again, singing gaily, and I withdrew behind the red morning clouds. The phoenix bird. In the garden of paradise, beneath the tree of knowledge, bloomed a rose bush. Here, in the first rose, a bird was born. His flight was like the flashing of light. His plumage was beauteous, and his song ravishing. But when Eve plucked the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, when she and Adam were driven from paradise, there fell from the flaming sword of the cherub a spark into the nest of the bird, which blazed up forthwith. The bird perished in the flames, but from the red egg in the nest there fluttered aloft a new one, the one solitary phoenix bird. The fable tells us that he dwells in Arabia, and that every year he burns himself to death in his nest, but each time a new phoenix, the only one in the world, rises up from the red egg. The bird flutters round us, swift as light, beauteous in color, charming in song. When the mother sits by her infant's cradle, he stands on the pillow, and with his wings forms a glory around the infant's head. He flies through the chamber of content and brings sunshine into it, and the violets on the humble table smell doubly sweet. But the phoenix is not the bird of Arabia alone. He wings his way in the glimmer of the northern lights over the plains of Lapland, and hops among the yellow flowers in the short Greenland summer. Beneath the copper mountains of Fabland and England's coal mines, he flies in the shape of a dusty moth over the hymn book that rests on the knees of the pious miner. On a lotus leaf he floats down the sacred waters of the Ganges, and the eye of the Hindu maid gleams bright when she beholds him. The phoenix bird, dost thou not know him? The bird of paradise, the holy swan of song. On the car of Thespes he sat in the guise of a chattering raven, and flapped his black wings, smeared with the lees of wine. Over the sounding harp of Iceland swept the swan's red beak. On Shakespeare's shoulder he sat in the guise of Odin's raven, and whispered in the poet's ear immortality, and at the minstrel's feast he fluttered through the halls of the Wartburg. The phoenix bird, dost thou not know him? He sang to thee the Marseillaise, and thou kissest the pen that fell from his wing. He came in the radiance of paradise, and perchance thou didst turn away from him towards the sparrow who sat with tinsel on his wings. The bird of paradise, renewed each century, born in flame, ending in flame. Thy picture, in a golden frame, hangs in the halls of the rich, and thou thyself often fliest around, lonely and disregarded, a myth, the phoenix of Arabia. In paradise, when thou wert born in the first rose, beneath the tree of knowledge, thou receivedst a kiss, and thy right name was given thee, thy name poetry,